For the ones who get going when the going gets tough. And the ones who know we're tougher together. For the Pathfinders breaking new ground. Grainger offers supplies and solutions for every industry, as well as fast access to experts and 24/7 customer support. Because we know you have people depending on you. So you can always depend on us. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
They are people just like you. People who heeded a call and played a role in history. You may not think of veterans that often, but America wouldn't be America without them. So why not take time to honor their bravery, hear their stories, and see the faces behind the forces at the National Veterans Memorial and Museum in Columbus, Ohio. It's a moving and inspirational experience you and your family won't soon forget. Plan your visit at nationalvmm.org.
And up there's no water. There's a couple saltwater lakes, but there's no fresh water. And so when I left San Pedro de Atacama, I was loaded up with kind of as much water as I've ever carried. And my cart weighed probably well over 100 pounds, and my backpack was loaded with water. And in one day, that first day, I get all like jacked up on Red Bull and coca leaves and everything and push out.
I made a mistake when I talked to Tom. I made a mistake, and that mistake was not scheduling enough time to talk with him. I tried to fit it in on a lunch break at work, and I just am kicking myself because it was such an amazing talk, such an amazing idea, and I felt like we just started getting into it by the time I had to go. So it's probably safe to say we're going to have Tom back on because he's technically not done with his journey, but he is walking around the world and has been for 7 years. 6 years without stopping. He had to stop at one point for just a little while, but he left his home in New Jersey, started walking towards the Mexican border, picked up a dog in Texas, Savannah, a 3-month-old dog, and that dog, Savannah, has been with him the entire time as he made his way south to South America, across Asia and Europe, and even Antarctica. It has been a heck of a journey, 7 years in the making. He's in Denver right now. Well, now he's actually in Seattle taking a break, but he made it to Denver before the winter, taking a little break, and he's going to finish his walk back home to New Jersey soon. And he was on the show back in episode 270 originally, and then episode 517, both of those about 2 years apart, and 2 years apart here. So we talked to him right at the beginning of his journey, maybe a year or so in, and then another few years in. So we've gotten the full sweep on Tom Turcich's story. So it's awesome to be able to connect with him again and tell you about him. And I definitely recommend checking out his other 2 shows as well. They're linked in the show notes. Check those out because you're gonna want to listen to those and listen to this. And it's amazing for someone who has walked around the world, literally on foot with a baby stroller and a dog, how applicable the lessons are to you and me, who most likely are not doing that. So it's amazing. It's absolutely amazing, the things he's saying. And so I'm very excited to bring you this episode. So let's, without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into it. Tom, welcome back to Adventure Sports Podcast. How are you?
I am doing well. Thanks for having me, Mason.
You mentioned you're at your girlfriend's house. How are you able? That's my first question. Like, how are you able to maintain a relationship while walking around the world? Like, what is that even like?
Well, this is like pretty new. We met right after I left Seattle, and kind of up until now, I've been traveling for about 6.5 years. Up until now, it's been impossible, or I haven't wanted it, or whatever. A lot of factors come into play that I wasn't able to have a relationship. But now being back home, a lot's changed. I'm a lot more comfortable, and I know the end is in sight of this massive journey. And so it just kind of worked out. We met along the way, and She's in med school, so that works out as well because she's very busy. And so she just calls and we talk whenever she has time, and I have time all the time to talk because I'm
Right.
just out there walking. So it works for both of us. And since kind of winter set in and the days are just so short, I knew I was going to take at least a month off when I reached my sister's home in Denver. And so when I got there, I figured, I'll just come up and hang out with my girl and really make the most of my downtime before I get back to walking and finish the last little section of this 7-year journey.
My goodness, man, that is incredible. So it's it's a long distance relationship for most people, but not relatively speaking, I guess, for you. It gets longer every day that you're walking.
But we've been able to make it work. It's felt pretty easy, so it's good. I'm enjoying it so far.
It's really hard to even know where to start with this story. There's so much. I can't imagine what's packed into your head. You've probably forgotten more stories than most people on the show have ever had. But I do want to know, what is kind of top of mind as you approach the end of this 7-year journey?
Yeah, I think there's a couple things that are top of mind. I'd say probably the most pervasive one, the one that I think of most, is just being back in my home country permanently for the first time in about 6 years. And I think this is something that just about everyone who travels can relate with, whether it's they're traveling for 3 weeks, for 2 months, for a year. There's always this distance. There's a certain experience of newness that you have when you're traveling and of simply just being a foreigner, whether it's not knowing the subtleties of a local culture, whether it's not knowing the language, whether it's looking different. There's always this sort of separation that you have when you're traveling abroad. And that's one of the great benefits and one of the great joys of traveling is that experience of newness and of strangeness. But after 6 years of that, I was a little more worn down than I realized just from constantly being away. And so then to come home after so long was this great weight lifted off of me, and all this sort of armor and kind of emotional callousness that I had built up to protect myself in these strange places, it all fell away. And I've just really been able to relax and enjoy walking across America kind of in a way that I haven't enjoyed walking in the 7 years of this journey. It's always been about discovering everything around me and outside of me. And now to come back, I'm kind of processing everything that happened inside of me and how much I've changed over these past years because I'm in a safe, familiar environment. And so just coming back and walking like I did from Seattle down to Denver over these past few months has really been relaxing and has helped me, look back and process all these insane and crazy things I've been through over the past 7 years.
What has changed in your eyes about America since you've been back? I know you're looking at it with new eyes, but it's been an interesting 6 years that you've been away. What's different about it, or what is so comforting? That's an interesting take.
Well, what's comforting is just being home. I think if I had my choice, I would pick other places to live than America. But that's not to say you don't love your home. And America is a great country and very wealthy, and there's a lot of things, and the people are very, very friendly. But I would say what's changed and what's I think has been really exacerbated by COVID is the country seems kind of more divided, which is frustrating because I am pretty certain for the most part that well, I am certain for the most part that just about everyone is good and has the right intentions. And so to see the U.S. kind of so divided, just so many bad faith arguments, kind of dividing the country, and is a little heartbreaking. So that part of coming home is difficult because I felt like when I left America's standing in the world was a little bit more assured, and now it seems a little bit less assured. And there's just so that like the part of coming back and kind of the difficulty of living in America is there and is definitely on the forefront of my mind. And that's another factor of when you travel a lot, you have a lot of different ways to compare your own country to the world. And I think that's one of the great benefits of traveling is that you're able to see other perspectives on your own country and ways to improve your own country. And that makes me, once again, after just years of traveling through country after country after country, it makes me really politically aware in a way that I wasn't before, and kind of more concerned about simple things, just like I know we can do healthcare better. I know we could have better bike lanes, which is something so simple but makes such a big difference, and better public transport. And there's just a lot of structural things in the U.S. I mean, just a better, more representative democracy is a good start. These are all massive things. I'm not sure if this is where you wanted the question to go, but these are all things that are kind of like on my mind now that I'm coming back, as well as just comparing it to all the other places I've been and wanting the best for, this place that I love and that has provided me a great life.
Yeah, man, I didn't plan on asking you that, honestly, but you mentioned it, and just being happy to be home. I totally get that. Home is home. You can't change where you're from. You can change where you go, but you can't change where you're from. And I don't know about you, man, but when I travel the world, it almost makes me more patriotic in the sense of like, I want my home to have these elements. I want my home to strive for this. Not patriotic in that sense, rather than it's a different definition of patriotism than I think you just think about instinctively. And it sounds like you have that feeling of I want to invest in this place to be better.
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely this sense of when you go abroad and you're talking to people from Switzerland or Kyrgyzstan or Turkey, wherever it might be, you always want to share the great things about your country. And so that in that sense, it makes you patriotic, and, you talk about each other's countries and what your country does well versus what their country does well. And I think that's one of the great things that makes America so amazing, is that like we have so many different cultures in here and people from all over the place. And it's just, it's very beautiful.
Wow. Well, I tell you what, you're from not just the U.S., but your finish line and where you're going is and I don't know if it's an adventure hub, New Jersey. I think that's the same reaction a lot of people hear from me when I say I'm from Florida. But so when you visualize the finish line, what do you see? What's going through your head? How are you thinking about it? And what does that look like to you?
Well, definitely the night before I finish, I'll stop in Philadelphia, where I have a ton of cousins, and I'm sure I'll stay at one of my cousins' houses and I'll party with my cousins, and it'll be awesome. And then the next morning, walk over the Ben Franklin Bridge and down the main street, Hadnav, of my hometown, and maybe a little welcoming committee there kind of thing. I know some people are planning some things, and it'd be nice to have a little, something to share that moment with. And I'll stop out front of probably this historic theater that we have in town, the Westmont Theater, and that'll be that. And I picture it, with my family, and Savannah will become the first dog to walk around the world, which I'm kind of like more excited for her than anything else. That's, a crazy thing.
And she won't even know it.
Yeah, she won't even know it, but she knows she'll be home because she'll be with, her grandparents. She'll be with my parents, and she'll be happy about that. But yeah, I think at this point there is a little bit of, I'd say, hesitation or trepidation, or maybe even a little bit of fear about ending. Maybe not fear, maybe just a little more anxious about kind of, what comes next. For this is, this idea of walking around the world is something that has directed my life since I was 17. I've known since I was 17 that this is what I wanted to do. And for it to be ending 16 years later, finally, is, I've basically spent half of my life with this idea directing me. And so now I got to figure out what the next, guide is, or where I'm going to, take my life next. And so with that sort of ending, there is a sort of anxiety. And that was always also the intention of making this such a big adventure, was that I didn't want to just cycle for 6 months or to backpack through Europe for a few months. I wanted this to be my life. I wanted it to be a lifestyle for me, and I wanted it to change me, and I wanted to see a lot of the world. And so in that way, I succeeded, and everything kind of went as designed and as I planned. But now that, this is something so big coming to an end, it's kind of a question of, where do I go from here? And that's what I luckily have some months to figure out, and lots of times to think about it.
It's going to be whiplash no matter what you do next, unless it's just you keep walking, because nothing's quite like it. It's you've mentioned that a lot of your memories right now, or a lot of your thoughts right now, are memories about what you've been through as you get closer and closer. What are you thinking about, or what has been some of those high-level lessons that you've learned from this experience?
Yeah, I would say probably the main lesson, or there's a couple primary lessons that have just been drilled into me over and over and over again. The first one is just like, so much of life and so much of a person's life is just chance. And when I'm walking through, say, like the deserts of Peru or Chile, or through Denmark, or through the mountains of Algeria, or the mountains of Kyrgyzstan, and you meet all these different people, and you see children running there and playing there and growing up with their parents there. It's a very simple lesson, and something I think most people, I would hope kind of most people understand even intellectually, that life is mostly a lottery. But to see it every day, and to see all these different lives and lifestyles, and to talk to all these different people, it just gets drilled into you over and over and over again that, so much of life is just chance. I mean, if at a very simple level, if I didn't have a U.S. passport, or a passport from Germany or Japan, somewhere with a strong visa program, then I would not be able to do this. It's as simple as that. There's an amazing guy in Iran who has walked all over Iran and would love to be doing the same thing I'm doing, but he can't. Just diplomatically, he cannot do the same thing. And so something as simple as that. The other thing is, like, I'm a tall white man, and that in itself makes me makes the world a lot safer for me, and in general probably people friendlier towards me than if I was someone else. And so there's just like all these different factors that come into play and make me very grateful for the life I've had, and also just drill home the lesson that I have had this great life and these amazing adventures, but to not put so much value on myself that I'm this incredible, brilliant, powerful individual. It really is, for me, it's more an example of just how fortunate I've been. And that makes me appreciate it more. It makes me less haughty and narcissistic, and just more grateful. And then also, it makes me want to be more generous and giving, and to improve the world, and to, it makes me more empathetic towards people who are down on their luck, or people who have an illness, or a myriad of things. Just so much of life is just chance. And I'd say that's the primary thing. And then going hand in hand with that lesson is just how small we are. There are these times when I was walking, again, say in the deserts of Peru and Chile, and I would be going 4 days in between towns, and I would want to walk faster or more to get to a town quicker and to get out of this stretch of barrenness. But I just can't. And I could only walk so much in a day, and really maybe 25 miles a day. When I was at my best form, I could keep that up in perpetuity. And if I walked more than that, then my body would start aching, and I would pay for it the next day. And so I had to, again, learn my limits and kind of learn my limitations. And that really, it's better to just, do the work I could do in a day, walk what I could walk, and then put the day away and be satisfied with it, and then wake up the next day and do it again. But really, it's a lesson in limitations, and it's a lesson in kind of the smallness of a single person. I remember being laid out under the stars in the Atacama Desert, just like night after night, and having a million stars over me, and every night the galactic core tearing through the middle of them. And I would be laid out there on these plateaus with nothing around. So it's just like only the stars in front of me, and feeling them almost like crushing me with their weight and their history and their size. And this is after walking through the desert and having these lessons of limitations just burn into me from walking every day. And then at night, looking up at these galaxies and stars and feeling the real smallness. And then that compared with, talking to there's people out there in the desert, living in these little bamboo shacks, and this dude is just selling oil for passing cars. And it's like, that could just as easily have been my life. And it would have been maybe no better, no worse. And I should respect this man no more or no less than anyone else. He's just another person who probably wants to make a little money and then hang out with his family and laugh with his friends. And it doesn't matter if you're a bamboo shack in Peru, or if you're in a snow-covered town in Arslanbab, Kyrgyzstan, or if you're in a penthouse in New York. It just all comes down to just want to live a happy life, probably with your family, and find some contentness and purpose. And the surface things change, the foods change, the religions change, but everyone kind of, all the world religions and everything else pretty much comes down to just, don't be a dick and be nice to your family and your friends.
Let's take a quick message break and hear from our new sponsor, Crux Academy. If you've been inspired by this show to get out there and try a new adventure, try a new sport, but you don't know where to start with actually learning how, I totally understand. We provide a lot of inspiration on this show, but we don't give you a lot of how-to. That's where Crux Academy steps in. Crux Academy is an online platform that teaches top-tier outdoor adventure sports classes by the absolute icons in those sports. So whether you want to learn how to boulder, fly fish, mountain bike, plan adventures, even stuff like backcountry skiing and a lot more, Crux Academy has a course for you. And if they don't right now, they're adding new courses every single month of 2022. So if you're looking for a last-minute gift this holiday season, Crux Academy is not only a great option, they are doing a very special offer just for ASP listeners, which is a BOGO subscription model. So you can buy a subscription for somebody and get a free one for yourself. You can train with them. Y'all could plan to do an adventure together for a sport you don't even know how to do yet, but you could take the course on Crux Academy, and the go do an adventure together. I think it's a fantastic idea. I'm going to be gifting it to some people in my life. And it's a great way to put some of the inspiration that you've gotten from the show into action, get out there, learn something new, and then go do an adventure. So if you'd like to learn more, go to crux.academy/ASP to get that exclusive offer. And that, by the way, that is CRUX.academy/ASP. And by the way, that subscription is for every course on Crux Academy's site. So it's not just for one course. I love subscriptions as gifts because you don't just keep cluttering people's life with stuff. You get them something they can use, and it's a gift that just keeps on giving throughout the year. So check it out, crux.academy/ASP. All right, let's get back to the episode. 7 years walking around the world. Tell us your great wisdom. Don't be a dick. Be nice to your family and friends. I think my son's learning that in daycare today too. Isn't that awesome? That's what drives it home. That is amazing. Well, let me tell you this, or let me ask you this. We're obviously fed, all sorts of resources for news or media or what's going on in the world. To you, what is the state of the world at the grassroots level, on the ground level? What have you seen as general themes?
The state of the world is great. People are well-intentioned and good everywhere. I would say 99.9% of people are good and well-intentioned. And a lot of it comes down to maybe like a lot of misfortune or maybe trouble in a place really comes down to probably more like historical things. A lot of the poverty in Peru comes from, the conquistadors coming in and like taking their gold and silver away and establishing these like repressive laws against indigenous people and a lot of that. So like there's a lot of like history in a lot of places that sort of oppress people, but people themselves are good and kind and generous, and I found that over and over and over again. And again, like not to get political, but this is like kind of one of the frustrating things about a lot of say like the larger problems in the world today, say something like climate change, which is it's too big of a thing for an individual to solve. And I'm sure you had to remember the same thing growing up. It's like, turn off your water, close your fridge, and you'll save the planet and save the water kind of thing. But there's like structural issues. And the problem, I think this is like maybe a thing that not everyone understands because it's easy to dismiss humanity as bad and ill-intentioned and maybe stupid. But I don't think that's the case. I think people are kind and smart and good intentioned, but a lot of systems aren't properly in place to give people a good life. And something just trying to live your life without consuming plastic is like a very easy example. People are small. You can only do so much in a day, which is again why this sort of lesson in humbleness and sort of understanding that's kind of been drilled into me from meeting all different walks of life and having lots of time to reflect on my own life. When you think about just how small one person is like how complex the world is and how many of us there are now, you need good systems to give people good lives. And so for me, it seems like a lot of the world's ills right now come from poor systems. And again, perfect example of that is climate change, and a good example just to think about that is like the average person who just wants to go about their day, again, make a little money and hang out with their family. How are they going about their day? They're going into the supermarket, they get a little food, everything is covered in plastic. It's like that's not a good system to be set up. And so for me, 99.9% of people are good and kind, and when you look on the news, it seems like the world is burning, and well, it is, but literally, but like it seems like there's all these evil things happening and all that. But most people are just living their lives, and they're just normal people, wherever they are, and it's really easy to kind of get overwhelmed by this kind of these like single pieces of news and think the world is so bad. But no, I mean, people are good. And I think, again, when you travel and maybe you spend time in Istanbul or Dubrovnik or, wherever it may be. And in your mind, before you travel, you think they're these very foreign, kind of impossible to imagine places. And then you get there and you go, oh no, this is just people living like anywhere else. And yeah, it's an easy thing to forget. And it's an easy thing to really not even think about if you haven't traveled, and to kind of assume that people are different in other countries when really they're not. And it's just historical context or, landscape or the political systems that are set up or the economic systems that are set up that, and then also maybe just getting painted a certain way by the media. But yeah, there's much greater forces at work that, we just don't fully comprehend. But I'd say on the grounds, the world is doing good. People are good. People are kind. Go travel, talk to some people. Life is good out there.
I got to take your word for it, because you're the one that has seen it way more than probably anyone. Well, I'm sure we've got some guests that have done some similar. We've had a lot of, or some listeners, that is, but that's absolutely fantastic to hear. I was going to ask you, do you have a story that you could maybe exemplify or just illustrate this, how good the world is? Something that, I'm sure you got millions, but anything that sticks out to you about the world being good?
Ooh, okay. Yeah. Perfect example to think about it. So I was in one of the last countries I walked before returning home was Uzbekistan, which is a little country in Central Asia. I'm sure you know where it is, but just for your listeners, and anyone who doesn't know, yeah, it's a little country in Central Asia, which had this very repressive dictator over the past so many years, until about 40 years ago. They were part of the USSR and very, very closed off and pretty impoverished country. And I'm walking through Uzbekistan, and this is maybe not exactly a story, but I don't think I paid for like a single meal any time I stopped in a restaurant. They would never let me pay. But then to bring it down into like a single story, I stopped in this really kind of tiny little village, nothing around, and there's a little tea shop, and in this tea shop there's no sign for the tea shop because there was no real like market capitalism. There's no tourists, so there's no reason for a sign. Everyone who wanted tea in the town knew where the tea shop was, so they just didn't need a sign. And so anyway, I find this, and I'm sitting out front with a couple of locals, and some more locals come, and then we're all sitting there sharing tea and using Google Translate to talk. And then they call their son or one of their sons over. They give him a call, and he speaks English. And then he comes over, and he's translating for me and everything else. And it was just it's not the most profound example. And I've had people give me things, and I've had hundreds of people host me in Uzbekistan. I had people host me in Tashkent, and in Georgia I had people host me, in Azerbaijan I had people host me. So that happens all the time. But just like on a simple example of just passing through this village that in your mind, you don't know anyone. Before traveling, if I even tried to begin imagining what it would be like to walk through this little village in Uzbekistan, it would probably be, kind of laced with some fear and worry about maybe who knows what it's like there. But instead, it's what it's like is that I sat down and I had some great conversation with a bunch of locals, and they gave me tea and bread and tomatoes and onions and fed me and told me about their country. And I said goodbye and and moved on. And that's what the experience was like in the town. And I'd say that's like repeated more often than not is, a lot of people just want to go about their day, which is, of course, but you're going to find like far more welcoming, curious and kind people out in the world, then you're going to find nasty and mean people. And again, like people have mean and nasty moments, but I'd say in general, people are more welcoming than anything else. And I think that little moment of sharing chai is like a good example of that. And another one in Uzbekistan, which is perhaps a better example, is when I was walking there, was getting up to well over 100 degrees every day, and wasn't even the beginning of summer there, of the worst of it. I walked up to this mosque and asked them around midday if I could just sit in the shade to get out of the sun. They said, of course, and invited me in and basically gave me a room and a bed to hang out in. And I had my dog, which in Islam is generally a little considered maybe dirty, more dirty than cats. So with dogs in Islam, it's, they're not always super like excited to have a dog there. But they gave her a spot and a bed and everything like that as well. And it was really nice. And then I shared a lunch with the imam. And when I finished lunch, I come out and my shoes have been cleaned. The imam's son had taken my shoes and cleaned them with like a toothbrush. And it was just like so unexpectedly nice. And I needed the rest from the shade. And I just got so much more than that and was shown so much kindness. It was really nice. And yeah, it just happened again and again. I mean, I have, again, just like 100 stories just like that from all over the world of just getting so much more kindness and generosity than I ever expected.
Well, what I love about that is, it might not seem big or it might not seem like a huge deal. What you're doing isn't crazy in the sense of just walking. You know what I mean? What you're doing is not walking. It's just building this framework for amazing things to happen. Just beautiful to hear. And it sounds like most of the world is in that boat. Most of the world is trying to do those same things. Be nice to each other, make a little money, and spend time with family. That's amazing. And you find that the same here in the States too, as busy as we can be.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, definitely. I'd say the Americans are some of the friendliest people you'll find, for sure.
That's awesome. That is so cool to hear. Well, obviously, you've got a sidekick, Savannah, more like a friend, probably like or I don't know, child. I don't know how y'all look at each other as friends or father-daughter type situation. But what are some of the unexpected things that people don't realize that incorporate with having a dog? Because I know when we talked the last time, you had this experience where Savannah was almost bombarded by a group of wild dogs. And you didn't know how it was going to work out, and it ended up being okay. But that was 2 years ago. There's a lot that could have happened since then.
Yeah, I'd say in general, like the way I'm traveling works very well with having a dog, because for most of the time I'm just walking and camping and maybe getting a hotel here and there. When traveling with a dog and with Savannah becomes more difficult is when I have to fly or when I'm like crossing a lot of borders. And so this past year with COVID was particularly like unusually difficult because again, normally I'm just walking and really the only time I need paperwork for Savannah or even have to like think about her is when we're crossing a border and I need to get another health certificate or maybe I need to get a specific paper from the government. Usually it's not much, but that's when it comes into play. A lot of countries, a lot of borders on land, probably 50% of them honestly don't even acknowledge Savannah. So I get the paperwork for nothing. But when I'm flying, and this past year with COVID and so many countries are closed, I had to fly into Tashkent, Uzbekistan to get into Uzbekistan. And so that's like I have to get a crate, and then I had to find friends that could like hold the crate for me. And then I had to, pay extra to get her on there. And then it's stressful getting her on there. And then I have to have, very tight paperwork to, get her in through the airport. And then I had to do the same thing. I tried crossing on land from Uzbekistan to Kyrgyzstan. The land borders were closed to Americans. So I had to fly from Tashkent to Bishkek, the two capitals. And again, that's a whole other process, getting her back in the crate, when I get to Kyrgyzstan, find someone who can hold the crate, and just begins this, just like really headachy, stressful process of getting her across borders. So when it comes to like flying, then it's really frustrating and stressful. But for the most part, when it's just Savannah and I out walking, like now with being back in the U.S., and it's always easy to find a pet-friendly hotel here, which is kind of maybe where some like I would get a sticking point, say in Turkey or in like North Africa, where I'm in an Islamic country or Islamic majority country, and they're not accustomed to having dogs indoors, so maybe it's a little bit harder to find a pet-friendly hotel, and maybe I need a rest or something. So then it could be a little bit more difficult. But like now, like for this whole walk across the U.S., it'll be a piece of cake because, well, people love dogs here, which is another reason why I love the U.S. And there's a lot of good dog food, which is great. But then also, for the 99% of the time, it's just us walking, and then we camp. And so when we're out there just kind of doing our thing, it's great, and it's a piece of cake. The difficult, I'd say the most kind of the most difficult sections with Savannah was for sure Central and South America, a little bit less in South America, but a lot of the dogs there could be really mean. And I think the first 2 years of walking with Savannah, we encountered kind of more mean and aggressive dogs than anyone else, because in Central and South America, you get a lot of these dogs where, maybe the country doesn't have the same level of wealth that, say, the U.S. or Europe does. So they're not taking a dog in to be part of the family. Rather, a dog will kind of show up. Someone will throw their food scraps to the dog, so the dog eats the food, and then it kind of stays around the person's house and becomes territorial of, this is where they get the house. The person has some attachment to the dog, but not enough really to show it any love and affection. And so you kind of get this, like, you get these dogs that are given food, become really territorial over this place where they get their food, but they're not getting the same love and affection that, say, a dog like in the U.S. does, where, we're like, dogs are like a religion for us. And so in Central and South America, it was pretty tough with Savannah because these dogs would come charging out on a daily basis for sure. And, most of them were not truly, I think I've only seen 2 dogs where I actually thought, like, if this dog got Savannah, it would kill Savannah and it would rip my leg off. One was in Algeria, and then the other one was in Azerbaijan, where I was actually like really terrified of this dog. But for the most part, the dogs are just like aggressive and maybe would snap at you or something like that, but not, these killer dogs. But then after that, it's, again, for the most part, after those first 2 years where we encountered more of those kind of mean dogs, for the most part, all through Europe and North Africa and then, into Central Asia, the Caucasus and Central Asia, for the most part, it's just we're walking and then we camp and then we walk and we camp and walk camp, and it's great. And, and the benefit is I have this companion who is always excited to go for a walk. And when I camp at night, she's asleep beside me. And if something comes, she barks and jumps out of the tent. And then I have this companion when I'm in front of an amazing view, I can sit beside and kind of share with. And so, the benefits of traveling with Savannah have been profound. And I've grown just like an insane respect for her because she's just so tough. It's crazy. I remember thinking in the desert of Peru, and I had this stomach ache at the time from eating some some really bad. I was like on the hunt I had this really strong craving for General Tso's chicken for like a month, and I kept trying all these different. Every time I got into town, I tried some different Chinese food, and Peru has an interesting mix of Peruvian Chinese food because they had a lot of Chinese come over to work in the mines maybe 100 years ago, and So this Peruvian Chinese food, and I kept trying all these different dishes, and I had this really bad, like oyster chicken dish, and my stomach was just like destroyed from it. And I was in the desert, and then walking in this, another like 3-day stretch, and just my stomach was killing me. And I was thinking, it's like, I know Savannah has had stomach aches, but she never stops and she never slows down and she never complains about it. And she always does whatever mileage I want to walk, she walks. And then she probably wants to play at the end of the day. And and so she's just she's such just like a great example of just stoicism and just doing your daily work and kind of getting on with things. So yeah, she's a beast. A great companion.
And being happy doing it. That's the most amazing
And being
thing.
happy, yeah.
It's stoicism mixed with joy and fun. They just want to have fun. That dog has lived a better life than pretty much everybody listening. And probably you too. She's probably having more fun.
Yeah, I mean, I'm taking care of everything for her.
Yeah, exactly. She's like, well, this is great. Seeing all this stuff, get food, I can stay in great shape. Such a cool aspect of it, and I'm sure that has just added so much to the last 6-7 years. Jeez. Well, tell me this. I know we're staying at kind of like a high level with everything, just because you have so much you're processing.
Yeah.
What has been one of the most challenging seasons, or what was one of the hardest times to get through out there? Let's take a quick message break and hear from the folks that help make this show possible.
Some coffee's fast, but not fresh. Some coffee's fresh, but only after a long wait. Speedway coffee is made fresh at the push of a button, hot or iced, so you can have fresh coffee your way, right away. Find a store near you at speedway.com/locations.
Shop on eBay this holiday season to get more for your dough on stand mixers. Or get more for your buck on this season's hottest tech and gaming gear. And on eBay, you can even get more. Phew. Last-minute deals delivered right on time. It's the biggest deals of December, so get more because you save more with eBay's one-day-only last-minute deals. Get more when you get it on eBay.
That is plenty of that for now. Let's get back into the episode.
There's a couple that kind of stand out. I'd say for the first 2 years, like through the Americas, kind of for as difficult as they may have been, like Costa Rica, the temperature was just insanely hot. The soles of my shoes melted off my feet. And then again, like the desert was very difficult, and crossing the Andes was challenging. But at that time, I was kind of so on fire with the idea of walking around the world that everything was just, so enjoyable, and it really was just a piece of cake for me. And when things got more difficult was I had a bacteria infection after South America that almost killed me. I lost about 45 pounds and was out of commission for about 7 months and in a lot of pain. And when I was finally able to get back to walking, I started Europe from Denmark, and I walked down to Spain. And at that point, I was like returned physically. But when I had this bacteria infection, I was in so much pain for so long that all my thoughts just kind of like bent negatively. And so I became pretty pessimistic and mean and bitter, and not in like a dramatic way, but just kind of just like everything was just kind of tainted with this, like this pessimism from that pain that I was in for a while. And when I got to San Sebastian, Spain, I needed to get a visa extension. My Schengen visa had ran out. My 90 days had run out. So I needed to get an extension for Spain. And so I stayed there for about a month and a half. Took forever for them to process the visa. And I didn't know anyone in the city. And I couldn't really afford the city at the time. I had no money, and I wouldn't have stayed there if I had a choice, because I couldn't afford it. And so it was like I didn't know anyone, and I felt very alone. And I would just study Spanish for a few hours a day, and then kind of had like nothing else to do. I'd just kind of wander around, or I'd walk to a beach and swim or something like that. But it was kind of like, it was a really dark period because it was the only time where I questioned, like, I was just thinking, like, what am I doing out here? I'm just out here on my own, and my family and all my cousins and everything are on the East Coast, and I'm just like out here, just what am I doing? I was just questioning things, and but at some point I got the visa and I walked a pretty good section of the Camino de Santiago, and I had this community around me, and I would meet these pilgrims who were it's the only time where I really shared a route with other people walking, and it came at a really good time where like I needed this community of people, and just having people to share coffee with every day, and talking with people who were doing this for religious reasons or because someone like a loved one had died, or maybe just to escape in a 9 to 5 that was draining them and they needed a little adventure, and having all these varied reasons and having all these varied conversations of kind of the benefits of walking and the joy of getting away really helped get me out of my funk, and again, like return like the appreciation for what I had and for where I was. And so I would say that was probably mentally probably the darkest time. And that's also what's interesting about the walk, or about really, I mean, maybe not any adventure, but like you said before, kind of what I'm doing is not, on a day-to-day basis is not the most dramatic thing. I mean, there's sections going over crossing the Andes that was like legitimately, that's serious, climbing. But for the most part, I'm just passing through these places where kind of people walk every day. And so really what a lot of the challenges is mental, and kind of just spending so much time with yourself. You really have to have your thoughts in order. And
what do you mean by that? What does out of order look like?
It's really just really, really subtle things of just like how you talk to yourself. If you're in a bad place, and when I'm walking, or when you're doing something like this, you're constantly exposed to yourself, and if it's very easy in modern life to get a hit of dopamine, or to kind of cover up any anxiety you have right away with just some trivial distraction. Be it you can jump on the internet, you watch a movie, you watch a TV show, you can grab a book, you can go out and you can get pretty much any food you could possibly have an impulse for right away. But when you're out walking, especially in the more desolate areas, and you really cannot satisfy any impulses, and you have these thoughts come and go, and these impulses come and go, they're really exposed. And so you see yourself and your thoughts kind of unclouded away from any way you would have of pushing them away or muddling them. And so I think when you're walking, there kind of two things. You're seeing your thoughts kind of more clearly than you would, and they sort of affect you more than they would otherwise, because again, you can't avoid them. And so when your thoughts aren't like nice and clean and kind as well, like you have to be really kind and supportive of yourself, or else you're just going to spiral down into some dark funk when you're out there on your own. Like you're the one out there that is supporting yourself, and I can't always call someone and say, hey man, and I do that. I talk to people, talk to friends and stuff a good amount, but you just spend so much time with yourself. You kind of have to be your own best friend. Yeah. And if you're not, that's where the real challenge comes in, because it's really just all mental.
What strikes me about what we're talking about is how similar this is to just normal life. I know that sounds weird, but it's the same conversations we're having about being a better person or being a better at quote normal life. It's positive self-talk. It's assuming the best in people. It's just keep going. It's so much of the same fundamental stuff. You've just applied it to something so different than so many of us apply it to, which makes all the difference. It makes all these stories happen. That's very interesting to hear. You mentioned something earlier that I usually don't ask, but people always ask me to ask, and I feel like this is a cool experience to ask it about. You mentioned that you weren't able to afford, I think it was in Spain, just afford being there. What has allowed you to afford to do this? I know you've got a sponsor, and I want to hear it because I've seen it literally for like the last 3 years. Philadelphia Sign. I don't know how much love they get, but I always like, it's such a funny. You obviously know someone there or something, but like this is so random just to be able to sponsor a 7-year walk around the world. But what does that look like for you? Because I know it hasn't been easy.
Yeah, so I saved for years. I went to college and then I worked for some years. I worked through college and then I worked after college to pay off my loans, and then had enough saved up where I thought I could make it down to Argentina or Uruguay over 2 years. And then kind of right the year before I was going to leave, started kind of gathering everything together, and then had a couple news articles written about me. And the impetus or the catalyst for this walk, it was my friend AnneMarie, who died. She was 16 and I was 17, and she's died in this freak jet ski accident. And that's sort of what woke me up to kind of my own life and my inevitable death. And so that's when the World Walk was born. And when I was telling these journalists who, again, wrote a couple articles about it, the owner of Philadelphia Sign knew AnneMarie. And so that's why they ended up sponsoring me, because he was good friends with her family. And so that was like very fortunate in that way. And so they've supported me. I can't speak, just like they've supported me kind of just totally with like full trust and that I'm going to do this thing, and just like incredible support. But it was fine for the Americas, which were a lot cheaper. But yeah, when I got to Europe and then like more expensive areas, then it just, wasn't sufficient. So I started a Patreon page. Yeah, before I started walking Europe, and that has really helped supplement that. And so I send postcards from around the world. So some people have been supporting me from the beginning, have like an incredible collection of postcards that I've sent them from around the world, and share high-res photos with them, and do like a monthly Q&A, keep them updated on my movements and everything. And that's really provided me the ability to do this. But again, like I'm not making like money off of this or anything. This isn't. I've done a couple of photography jobs. I did work for Google and Smartwool, and this was always about like, just for me, it was just about the walk, and the money was just a means of doing the walk. And so I really don't push it that much. If I have enough money to finish this thing, then that's more than I could ever ask for. Maybe I should be a little bit more aggressive getting money, but just not kind of how I think.
That's a slippery slope, man. That's I think that's what a lot of us are on. Maybe I should try a little bit harder for more. No, and I don't mean to, pry about that. I think a lot of people assume, well, Tom's, a trust fund kid, or he had some sort of big inheritance or something that allowed you to do this. But it's, it's never the case. We never talk to anybody that's the case. It is a combination of Patreon, some freelancing, saving for years, or just literally living on like $4 a day or whatever it is, and suffering, you know what I mean? Or just dealing with it half the time and relying on strangers, or just making it work and finding creative ways once they've actually started. So I just honestly like to remove that excuse for people by hearing from yourself.
I love that.
When looking back, what's one story you think you're going to always be excited to tell?
Okay, so this is definitely the one that stands out the most. So when I was crossing the Andes, I had left this little oasis town in Chile, San Pedro de Atacama, and that's at about 2,000 meters, so like 6,000 feet. And from there, to get from Chile to Argentina, the Andes is basically straight up to about 5,000 meters, a little more than 5,000 meters. And there's, I think there's 100 miles from San Pedro to Atacama. Actually, maybe being more than that. Yeah, I think it was more than that. From San Pedro de Atacama to this little border outpost on the Argentinian side. And so, and up there's no water. There's a couple saltwater lakes, but there's no fresh water. And so when I left San Pedro de Atacama, I was loaded up with kind of as much water as I've ever carried. And my cart weighed probably well over 100 pounds, and my backpack was loaded with water. And in one day, that first day, I get all like jacked up on Red Bull and coca leaves and everything, and push out, do this like 3,000 meter ascent kind of in one day, and just like absolutely just like destroy my body. And then when I'm at 5,000 meters, your body just doesn't heal the same way because they're not getting the same oxygen. And that ascent was so difficult that my muscles were just killing me. And I was in phenomenal shape at that point. I'd been pushing up and down these mountains and the deserts in Peru and Chile for months at that point, and did the Andes in Colombia and in Ecuador. So I was in phenomenal shape. But that first ascent just really wreaked havoc on my body. And then I'm at altitude for another 3 days, and the nights are bitterly cold, and I'm not sleeping super great. And then on the fourth night, the day before I can reach the Argentinian border, I'm kind of as far removed from civilization in a certain way that I've ever been. And there's nothing around. There's this little silver salt lake and like the peaks of some mountains. And there's this one little structure in the desert up there as I'm like looking for a place to set camp, but it's super, super windy up there. And there's no other structures except for this little square chain link fence, like in the middle of nowhere. I think it was just this kind of pipe. It was probably like a gas line release spot. There's this little kind of, like a U piece of a pipe, like just coming out of the ground and surrounded by chain link fence. So I tie my tent up to that, and I basically cover half of my tent with sand just to keep it in place. And I get this maybe 2 hours of sleep with this tent like slapping against my face and just on my side, so uncomfortable. Savannah sleeps out. She digs herself a hole in the sand and sleeps outside. And I wake up the next morning and it's calm, and kind of like kick the sand off my tent. Savannah climbs out of the little hole she dug, and I think I have maybe it's like 2 liters of water left. I think it was 2 liters of water. It might have been a little less than that at that point. And so I had to get to town, that day. And I load up the cart, and I have to push my cart like through this deep sand to get back to this little road that that leads to the little desert outpost. And I start pushing my cart, and my legs just give out on me. And it's the only time on my walk where I had reached like actual physical exhaustion, and my legs just give out on me, and I face plant into the sand. And then I turn on my back, and I'm just laying there. And I knew kind of in the back of my mind that if I just gave myself some time, I'd be all right, and I could push to town. And so I'm just laying there, and Savannah comes over and lays by my side. And I'm just thinking, like, this is so great. Like, this is such an amazing adventure. I'm up here at 5,000 meters, like, in the middle of the Altiplano, as far away as I ever imagined I could be, and on this great adventure with my best friend who I never imagined I would have. And we're on this thing together. And it was just like this real highlight of and I'd pushed my body. I had never, I've always been an athlete growing up and played college tennis, but I had never, pushed my body to exhaustion. And so it was very satisfying in a way to see, to reach my body's limit. And it was, it was just like such a great, highlight of adventure. And, it was a nice moment, just laying there and looking at the sky and appreciating how far I had come and what a great adventure it was to share with Savannah.
And I imagine that crossing the bridge and getting into New Jersey and walking down Haddon Ave is going to feel similar in a lot of ways. It's going to be a moment that you really can't replicate unless you spend 7 years walking around the world.
I'm certain that's right.
Oh man. Well, Tom, please keep us posted as when this is going to happen and expected finish line. And we'd love to shout it out. And heck, who knows? No, you never know. I work some close to there sometimes. So who knows? I'd love to at least be aware of it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I mean, appreciate you taking the time to talk and hope your listeners, enjoy the conversation.
First of all, thank you so much for listening. It means the world to us that you choose to listen to the show. If you'd like to help us further, you can leave a review on iTunes, share us with your friends, your family. It goes a long way to growing the show. You can also support us financially through patreon.com/adventuresportspodcast. Link is in the show notes. And also, if you have an idea of who could be a good guest for the show, we're always looking for people to tell their story about the outdoors or adventure. So if you know someone, please reach out. Email us at info@adventuresportspodcast.com. And until then, get out there and have some fun.
Shop on eBay this holiday season to get more for your dough on stand mixers, or get more for your buck on this season's hottest tech and gaming gear. And on eBay, you can even get more last-minute deals delivered right on time. It's the biggest deals of December, so get more because you save more with eBay's one-day-only last-minute deals. Get more when you get it on eBay.
If you're a movie collector, you need Movies Anywhere. It pulls your favorite purchase movies from participating digital retailers into one central place, so you can finally say goodbye to scattered movie collections and hello to an organized library. With Movies Anywhere, you can watch your favorite movies on any compatible device, whenever and wherever you want. Ready to grow and enjoy your digital collection? Visit moviesanywhere.com/welcome and register for free. Registration with Movies Anywhere required. Open to U.S. residents 13 and over.